If you provide the same protein patties in a queen rearing operation as you would in standard honey production apiary, you are starting at a disadvantage. Our goal isn't just for the bees to get by, but to build up in a short, controlled period, developing rapidly with strong queens and intensive brood rearing. In this video, I'll show you what our apiary is truly focused on and why solutions that might yield acceptable results elsewhere simply don't work here. If you are serious about queen rearing or colony propagation, you won't want to miss this video. To understand why we use protein patties differently, we first must clarify exactly what our apiary is geared toward. Not every beekeeping operation shares the same goals, and even goals differ. Feeding, stimulation, and the entire system must function differently. In our case, the first and most vital focus is a queen quality. It's not a question of whether there is a queen in the hive, but what her quality is. A good queen provides strong, uniform brood patterns, holds the colony together with stable pheromone influence, and is capable of performing at high level over the long term. However, good genetics alone are not enough. The condition of the nurse bees surrounding the queen is just as important, as they produce the food that sustain both the queen and the brood. If nurse bees do not receive the proper quality of protein and micronutrients, the queen's performance will drop, even if she has an excellent pedigree on paper. The second key point is intensive brood rearing. We aren't just talking about a lot of brood, but well-timed, uniform and vigorous brood production. This means a growth curve where the colony doesn't stall or fluctuate but builds upward continuously. This is especially critical in queen rearing and colony propagation because we cannot afford for a colony to be strong on a week and decline the next. Intensive brood rearing requires a stable protein supply, not sporadic feeding, but a conscious, pre-planned nutrition strategy. The third element is controlled explosive growth. This is a frequently misunderstood concept. It's not about mindlessly revving up the colonies, it's about knowing exactly when, in which colony, and to what extent we want to achieve growth. In a queen rearing or propagation apiary, there are periods when a large volume of young bees is needed in a very short time. You cannot simply wait for the rhythm of nature. In these moments, nutrition, stimulation and the entire system must work together so that development is rapid yet remains under control. This leads to the fourth and perhaps its most important aspect: short reaction times. In our apiary, we don't think in months, we think in weeks, even days. If a colony declines, if the weather changes, or if a queen's performance is inadequate, we must react immediately. This requires feed that is utilized quickly, accepted by the bees instantly, and encourage the colony toward active use rather than storage. A slow-consuming, inconsistently textured, or hard-to-digest patty simply doesn't work in this system. If we use patties that dilute due to environmental factors, become liquid, and end up at the bottom of the hive, we haven't just wasted the patty, we've wasted our time and labor. The vast majority of commercial available patties are not made from powdered sugar. Many have never even seen real sugar. Therefore, they can only be used successfully under ideal conditions, typically between 12 or 25 degrees Celsius or 54 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. As I mentioned in the previous video, this generally covers part of the spring build-up and the autumn stimulation and preparation periods. For the majority of beekeepers, this is perfectly adequate, which is why they don't experience the same problems we do. By the way, If you have encountered similar issues, please share your experience in the comment sections. Thank you very much. Our apiary has unique requirements. We are working on developments and strategies that necessitate nutrition capable of meeting specific demands. On summary, our apiary is not set up for average goals. Queen quality, intensive brood rearing, controlled and explosive growth, and rapid response are all requirements dictate which protein patties we can and will work with it. We select everything used on our apiary, whether it's patties or your management systems based on exceptional criteria. Once you understand this, it will be perfectly clear in the following videos why commercial solutions often fall short for us and why it was necessary to develop your own targeted formulas. This doesn't mean that commercial patties aren't suitable for general beekeeping. They likely are. However, they didn't meet the standards we required, which is why we began intensive developments in several areas of our operation. Now, let's look at why most commercially available protein patties aren't designed for this type of beekeeping. It is important to emphasize, these products are not bad. They are simply made for a different purpose. The problem begins when we try to use them to serve a system for which they were not fundamentally optimized. Of course, like any products on the market, I believe they are under continuous development, and manufacturers, even if at a slower pace, are improving and refining them. But for us, this pace was too slow, so we took control in your own hands. Most commercial patties are tuned for slow, steady development. This is perfectly adequate for an average honey production apiary, where the goal is stable, predictable population maintenance. However, in a queen rearing or colony propagation operations, this proved to be insufficient for us. This may also be because we have carried out quite rigorous queen and colony selection over the past few years, which of course is still ongoing today. This results in our colonies possessing above average developmental capabilities. We don't want to see results over months or, in rarer cases, years. We know exactly when a specific volume of young bees needs to appear. A slow effect stretching over months simply doesn't fit in this timing for our system. The next serious limitation is temperature sensitivity. Most commercial patties only perform well within a relative narrow temperature range. In the cold, they harden and become difficult to consume, so the bees are reluctant to touch them. In the heat, they soften, run, or even begin to soar. In an intensively managed apiary with many colonies and multiple sites where work must proceed quickly, there is no time to monitor the condition of the patty at every single location and every single hive. If the feed is this sensitive to environmental changes, it makes the entire system unpredictable. And here, I must highlight a few very essential differences between what we do, how we work, and the habits of most beekeepers. We only use patties, specifically pollen and protein supplement patties. We do this more or less continuously throughout the entire year. This means that from the moment we create our nukes, they receive patties and continues to receive them from that point forward. When we prep our colonies for winter, we pack them in with first-class patties that include treatments against nosema and chalkbrood. In early spring, as soon as they run out, we replenish them and the colonies continue to receive them throughout the entire spring build-up period. So, as I said, we are not managing an average apiary. Consequently, during the winter period when there is no brood and temperatures are low, the bees do not use the patty, and that's it perfectly fine. However, the vast majority of commercial patties absorb the rising humid air. This causes them to dilute, and since the bees aren't consuming them continuously during wintering, they ferment and begin to mold. If they become too diluted, they start dripping onto the colony. Bees will not consume fermented or moldy patties. In fact, these conditions promote the spread and reproduction of nosema and child brood. Furthermore, because we use them year-round, at temperatures above 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit, they soften, and the bees, in the best case scenario, carry them in and store them in the frames. In the worst case scenario, the patty runs down to the bottom of the hive, ferments and molds, which again facilitates nosema and childbrood infestation. This makes it dangerous and causes serious problems for us. Therefore, for our methods of use, commercial patties are not suitable. They simply do not work. As I mentioned, consistency issues are closely linked to this. Some patties are too hard, especially during cooler months like January and February. Since your apiary is in a hilly region, the weather here is cooler than in the lowlands. Other patties are too soft, and this is not just a matter of convenience. Bees break down overly hard patties slowly, which makes colony development sluggish because consumption becomes far too slow. On the other hand, an overly soft patty either runs down, contaminating the bottom of the hive and becoming a source of microbiological problems, or the bee stores it in the frames, which blocks the queen's activity and degrades honey quality in honey production apiaries. In a well-functioning stimulation system, the patty must be stable. It should not crumble, run, or spoil inside the hives. Most commercial products make compromises here, and these compromises come at the expense of intensive development. In our apiary, this is unacceptable. It simply doesn't reach the standard that our operation requires. Finally, we arrive at a very important point, the question of storage versus utilization. Many commercial patties have a composition that encourages bees to store them rather than use them immediately. To put it bluntly, they are not made from sugar but from syrup. This is why they easily become liquid under the influence of heat. The bees place it in the cells, setting it aside for later while the colony's development fails to kick in. The patty disappears from the hive, and the beekeepers believe the stimulation is very good, it's worked. In reality, nothing happens other than the material being relocated from there to there. In a queen-rearing colony or a propagation colony system, this is specifically harmful, as your primary goal is continuous stimulation and development to build up nurse bees, brood, and the young population. It's not working in this situation. In summary, the majority of commercial protein patties are designed for stable, average conditions. They are slow-acting, temperature-sensitive, compromising consistency, and often encourage the colony to store them instead of allowing the bees to utilize exactly what they need at the moment to ensure proper stimulation. These characteristics are not flaws in themselves, but in an intensive targeted apiary, they become serious limitations. And it is exactly because of these factors that we needed to completely rethink about role of protein patties and develop your own targeted solutions. Now let's look specifically at the cases where store-bought protein patties are not a good solution. These are situations where we don't just expect average growth but fast, precisely timed and predictable results. The first such scenario is the period leading up to queen rearing. When preparing a colony for queen rearing, the colony is not merely to have enough food into the hive. The emphasis here is on the quality and activity of the nurse bees. According to our experience, most store-bought protein patties act too slowly to bring these bees into the proper condition within a short time frame. The colony seemingly processes and the patty is consumed, but royal jelly production does not reach the level where the nurse bees can abundantly supply high-quality queen cells. In this case, the patty is present, but it isn't working toward our goals. In most instances, the composition of the patty itself is inadequate, as we require high protein content combined with the appropriate balance of amino acids and minerals. Our experience shows that the ideal protein content is between 33 to 36%, which unfortunately commercial patties cannot provide. The second critical situation is the rapid buildup of nukes. When we created nukes, every day counts. We cannot afford for a colony to store the patties. We must achieve a stimulation effect. With commercial patties, it often happens that the bees begin storing them, causing development to start later and become sluggish. As I mentioned, during this time, the period from May to September, outdoor temperatures generally range between 25 to 40 degrees Celsius or 77 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. This leads to a loss of time and money and a decrease in colony strength, which also holds back the following year's results. This is something we simply cannot afford. For a nuke that needs to be built up quickly, an immediate effect is required: young bees, fresh brood, and continuous development. If this fails to happen, the nuke falls behind, and the entire season's plan can be ruined. The third area is intensive nurse bee production. This is where the true quality of well-designed protein patties reveals itself. The development of nurse bees is extremely sensitive to protein quality, digestibility, and rations. Many commercial patties seem sufficient on paper and they are for an average apiary, but in practice, they are unable to activate the hypopharyngeal glands to the extent required by a queen rearing system. The patty is consumed, but the desired biological response is missing or it's late. This is where the difference between being stimulated and being well fed becomes very sharp. Finally, we must talk about microclimates sensitive apiary sites. Not every location is the same. There are places where humidity is higher, elsewhere the daily temperature fluctuation is greater, or the environment is windier. In this location, store-bought protein patties often becomes unstable. They harden, soften, soar, or simply do not behave as they should. In such an environment, it is impossible to check and correct every single hive daily. Feed is needed that remains stable and does not become a problem in itself. And most commercial products, however, are not designed for these extremes. In summary, store-bought protein patties are not bad, but there are situations where they are simply not suited for the task. Before queen rearing, during the rapid build-up of nukes, in intensive nurse bee production, and at the microclimate sensitive sites, precision, rapid response, and predictability are decisive. If these are lacking, the patty doesn't help, it slows you down. And it is precisely in these situations that the use of our own targeted solutions becomes justified, which I will discuss in detail in the following videos. I consider it important to talk about when commercial protein patties can still be put to good use. The goal is not to reject everything that is a store-bought product, but to handle them appropriately and knowing exact what they are suitable for and what they are not. The first such scenario is a stable environment. If the apiary is in an area with a steady microclimate, minimal extreme temperature fluctuations, no major changes in humidity, and more predictable weather, the commercial patties behave much more reliably. Under these conditions, it is less common for them to harden, soften, or begin to spoil, and the bees consume that more consistently. A stable environment masks many compromises that would be immediately noticeable at a more sensitive sites. And of course, if you do not use them during the summer, when temperatures climb well above to 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit, you will likely never have problems with them. The second condition is having moderate goals. If we aren't using the patties for queen raiding, rapid nukes buildup or intensive nurse bee production, but merely to maintain a basic level of development, then the majority of commercial products are capable of delivering acceptable and in the right environment even quite good results. In these cases, we plan for months rather than weeks, and it is acceptable if development is slower and more balanced. In such a system, the patty doesn't drive the process but supports it, and that is perfectly fine. Beekeeping cannot be done without compromises, but we should be aware of them and make conscious decisions. The third important aspect is their supplemental nature. Store-bought protein patties work best when they are not used as a sole source of nutrition. If natural pollen is available, if there is intermittent forage and the patty serves only as a backup or a boost, and if there is continuous stimulation alongside it, then the bees can utilize it well. In this case, the colony's performance does not depend solely on the patty but on natural sources, while the patty merely bridges the gaps during weaker periods. In summary, commercial protein patties can work well when used in a stable environment for moderate goals and as a supplement. The problems arises when we try to achieve results with these products that require targeted precision solutions. If we understand these differences, there will be no disappointment, and we will know exactly which tool to reach for and when. Now, we have reached the point many of you have been waiting for, the base recipes. But I want to make it very clear from the start. This is not gospel. It's not a recipe to be followed blindly without thinking. It is a starting point, a stable foundation to build up, which every beekeeper must adapt to their own environment, goals, and bees. We develop the base recipe to have a reliable, predictable point of reference, a mixture where we know how it behaves in the hive, how the bees react to it, and what biological processes it triggers. From here, you can start refining, strengthening, or dialing it back depending on what you want to achieve. In the remainder of this video, I will present several types of recipes, 2 for general apiary development and 2 more primarily for queen raiding and the creation and development for nukes for sale, as an example. Of course, if you want the best possible explosive growth for your bees, you can apply whichever of the last 2 recipes appeals to you most. First, let's look at what is identical across all versions, the fixed components. By the way, everything we calculate is for batches of 45 to 50 kilograms. As you can see, the mixer we work with handles loads of this size. The fixed components is corn syrup 14 kilograms, brewer's yeast 4 kilograms, protein powder with 80% minimum protein. Recipe 1 with 15 protein content in the finished product, we calculate an average of 47 kilograms of finished patty. For apiaries, for maintenance and development stimulation especially. Ingredients. Corn syrup is 14 kilograms. Powdered sugar 17 kilograms. Protein powder 7 kilograms. Brewer's yeast 4 kilograms. Pollen powder or milk powder 2 kilograms. Amino acids, extracts, oil and odors around 3 kilograms. Total weight is 47 kilograms. Total protein is 16%. Total sugar is 58.1%. We have observed that if the sugar content of the patties is over 30%, the consumption of the patty is really good. However, as you could see here, this has approximately 58% sugar content, which yields very good consumption results, so this is a very safe patty. Now, here is the next recipe. Recipe 2. 20% protein, outstanding results and apiaries focusing on average honey production. Average 47 kg finished patty for general use, small to medium size apiaries and more. Ingredients: corn syrup 14 kilograms, powdered sugar 14 kilograms, protein powder 11 kilograms, brewer's yeast 4 kilograms, pollen powder or milk powder 1 kilogram, amino acids and extracts and oil and odors around 3 kilograms. Total weight 47 kilograms, total protein 22%, total sugar 52.7%. Yes, you probably noticed that there is a collective item at the ends of the ingredients list. I will explain what that contains, the amino acids, extracts, oil plus the odors, at the very end of the video. And now, let's move on to what specifically interests me and what I find truly exciting: the formulas designed for professional use, primarily for elite apiaries and for rearing nukes and queens. Recipe 3, 33% of protein and minimum 30% of sugar. We calculate an average of 37 kg of finished patty here as well. Ingredients: corn syrup 14 kilograms, powdered sugar 7 kilograms, protein powder 17 kilograms, brewer's yeast 4 kilograms, pollen powder or milk powder 1 kilograms, amino acid, extracts, oils and odors 3 kilograms. Total weight 47 kilograms. Total protein is 33%. Total sugar is 37.8%. As you can see, we managed to reach 33% protein in the finished patty without the sugar content dipping below 30%, specifically with a sugar content of 37.8%. We are doing quite well here. And now let's move on to the final recipe. Recipe 4, 36% protein, minimum 30% sugar and 47 kg finished patty. Ingredients: corn syrup 13 kilograms, powdered sugar 6 kilograms, protein powder 19 kilograms, brewer's yeast 4 kilograms, pollen powder or milk powder 1 kilogram, and amino acids plus extracts, oils and odors 3 kilograms. Total weight 47 kilograms. Total protein 36.38%, safely in the 36% target zone. Depending on the mass of the extracts, 36 to 37%. Total sugar 35.8%. We managed to achieve everything here as well. The protein content of the patty reaches 36%, and the sugar content does not drop below 30%, as it sits exactly at 35.8%. One of the most common questions is regarding protein content. Why exactly 33 to 36%? It is because both our experiences and research results show that the best balance is achieved within this range. This is where colonies reach their peak development and where the best brood development occurs. Furthermore, this is where the mass of emerging bees and emerging queens is the highest. However, the addition of amino acids and minerals is essential for this. This level is high enough to truly and exceptionally stimulate development of the nurse bee's hypopharyngeal glands, supporting royal jelly production and intensive brood rearing, but not so high that it unnecessarily burdens the digestive systems of bees. Additionally, due to the preparation methods, ingredients, and consistency of the patties, the bees cannot store them. Instead, they use them for stimulation just as we intended. Earlier, we also worked with lower protein levels, and there was a period when tried even higher values. However, the extremes did not yield better results. The 33 to 36% range proved to be the band where development at your queen rating apiary remained fast, uniform, and well controlled. This doesn't mean that other solutions couldn't work elsewhere, but for us, in this system, this provided the best feedback for us. When we use such a base recipe, we continuously monitor several factors. The first is acceptance. How soon the bees start on it and with what intensity they consumed it. The second is consistency. Does it remain stable in the hive? Does it not dry out, run, or spoil? The third, and perhaps most important, is the biological response. When those brood rearing start? What is the pattern of the caped brood? How uniform is the development? We also observe what happens while the patty is being consumed. Does genuine development begins, or has the material simply disappeared from the hive? Those developments pick up. How is the brood being fed? And we attempt to measure effectiveness at several points. Do young, strong workers appear and increase in number? Can a change be seen in the colony's activity? These signs say much more than any label or marketing text on a product. This base recipe, therefore, is not a final destination, but a tool, a foundation upon which specific formulas can be built, as you saw with the different recipes for queen rating, nuke development, or even other beekeeping goals. In the following videos, I will show you how this base can be further refined, modified, and adapted to your own circumstances, depending on which production branch your apiary is geared toward. As you can see, your primary goals are queen rating and nuke development, along with pollen production at another site. Because the point is not for everyone to do the same thing, but to understand why things work and to use that knowledge consciously in your beekeeping. And now, let's look in detail at those extra supplements what we are took away among the recipe ingredients. Amino acids mix 400 grams, cobalt solution 100 milliliter, magnesium solution 100 milliliter, magnesium solution 100 milliliter, propolis tincture 200 milliliter, mugwort extract 200 milliliter, mint extract 100 milliliters, jute sunflower extract 100 milliliters, betadine 200 milliliters, thymol 100 milliliters, EM probiotics 200 milliliters, oil rapeseed or sunflower oil 500 milliliters, royal jelly 125 grams, chili pepper powder 200 to 250 grams, hive alive 100 milliliters, thyme extract 100 milliliters. Now that you see the full picture, it's time to state the difference between commercial patties and the system we use. Most store-bought protein patties are a compromise. They are designed to get by under all conditions across many types of apiaries for various purposes with minimal risk, making several compromises along the way. However, this means they won't truly excel anywhere. They offer average protein content, average utilization, and slower effects. Our recipe, which we have been developing since 2011, is built on a completely different logic. It wasn't made for average use. It was targeted specifically for queen rating, rapid nuke buildup, and intensive development. The goal here isn't just have something in the hive and that's okay, but to get measurable biological response. A strong population of nurse bees, fast starting and uniform brood rearing, and explosive growth when needed. Of course, it can be used for honey producing apiaries as well, but it is definitely worth genetically selecting your stock and working with colonies that have a low swarming instinct. The difference primarily manifests in 3 points. The first is protein content. While most commercial patties have around 10 to 15%, these recipes and our queen rating apiaries consistently provide a crude protein level of over 30% in the finished mass. But as you can see, there are slightly lighter solutions available in the form of recipes with 15 and 20% protein content. However, what we prefer to use are the patties with 33 to 36% protein. This is the range where the nurse bee's hypopharyngeal glands truly switch to maximum performance. The second is the quality and composition of the protein. We don't rely on a single source, but on several complementary protein sources. This provides a much better amino acids profile, better digestibility, and a more stable biological response. The bees don't just consume the patty, they actually work with it. The third is consistency and usability. This patty does not run, crumble, turn rock hard, or sour. We get a mass with the consistency of a firmer bread dough, which is easy to shape, easy to apply, and behaves stably in the hive. This is not a side consideration, it is a fundamental requirement in an intensively managed apiary. And something very important, when I speak about protein levels, whether in the 15 to 20% or even 33 and 36% range, this always refers to the finished product. This is the protein level present in the patty that you placed in the colonies to ensure they receive the proper stimulation. One more thing, to achieve the best possible results, we never stimulate with patties alone. Instead, we employ a complex stimulation strategy with combined solutions designed to satisfy every need of the bee colonies. This is how we ensure that the explosive growth of the apiary and the colonies helps us achieve powerful and outstanding production results. And now, at the end of this video, let's go over to the dosage in a few thoughts. Exactly the way we use it. Patty size, using around 4 to 500 grams per piece. Using for nuke's buildup, the patty is placed on the nuke, and as it is consumed, it is replenished immediately. There are no timed breaks. Using for queen rating, starters, finishers, mating nukes, the patty is present at all times. Replenishment happens as it runs out without interruption. Using for maintenance during dirt periods, the patty is present. Replenishment is based on consumption adjusted to the specific goals. A general principle, we do not think in terms of scheduled dosing days, but in terms of continuous availability. The colony's consumption dictates the replenishment. The foundation is provided by 100% inverted corn syrup, of which we use 40 kilograms. This ensures the necessary moisture, binding, and a portion of the sugar content without adding water. To this, we add the appropriate amount of powdered sugar, which provides the energy content, the structure of the mass, and ensure the total sugar content of the final patty remains at the minimum of 30%. This is the lower limit. From here, we only fine-tune upwards of the bees required it. The first pillar of the protein base is brewer's yeast powder, with 4 kilograms added to the mix. If we add too much, the bees become sluggish in carrying and processing the patty, which we want to avoid as it slows down development. This is a stable, well-proven base. But as I said, we don't overdo it. The second pillar of the protein is approximately of 80% concentration soaps. Along with a little milk powder, we use 1 to 2 kilograms of the latter as the consistency of the patty requires. It is highly palatable, does not disturb the bees, and complements the brewer's yeast nicely. The real boost to the protein level comes from the high protein base, which contains approximately 80% plant-based protein that is easily processed and digested by the bees. This protein base forms the backbone of the patty in terms of protein content. It is utilized quickly, has a fine grain, and does not degrade the consistency. To this we add amino acid mixtures and minerals, which further improve the amino acids profile of the patties. As a supplement, we occasionally include 1 kilogram of dried powdered pollen, exclusively from controlled source of our own production. This is important not primarily for the protein content, but for the natural components, scents, and better acceptance. Then come the smaller quantity but functional important ingredients: amino acid mixes, minerals, probiotics, plant extracts, oils, royal jelly, and other supplements. These are not significant from a protein standpoint, but have a serious impact on the immune system, digestion, and overall vitality. The end result is a finished mass of approximately 45 to 50 kilograms, with a crude protein content ranging between 15 to 20% or 33 to 36%, depending on which recipe we follow, the purpose of the specific patty, and how much extract and liquid components are included. In practice, this range is more than enough to achieve visibly faster and more powerful development compared to commercial patties, regardless of which recipe you use to make your own. This recipe works not because it's homemade, but because it is tuned for a specific primary goal. It is not for everyone, yes. Not for every apiary, yes. And not for every period, yes. But where queen raiding, new creation, and intensive development are the goals, the difference becomes visible very quickly. In the following videos, I will show you how this base recipe can be further refined for different purposes, and how we integrate it into a complex stimulation and development strategy for various production directions to achieve the best possible results. If you have any questions, let's talk in the comment section and see you in the next video.